Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another RTS cast over. This time I'm casting over HYDRA Melee AI, so you know we're in for something epic. So this is the 5th of June 2020. As of the time of recording this video, we have made some pretty significant updates to HYDRA. If you haven't followed it since, I don't know, what I actually have no idea how frequently people from the channel follow the stuff on the Discord server or on the Wikidot. But suffice it to say, HYDRA's Melee AI has been ready for testing and sort of approved to be relatively competent, especially in team games where you can sort of carry them through the early stages of the game where they could potentially get rushed or whatever. Still some critical issues, but we're working to fix them as diligently as we can, as quickly and efficiently as we can. And that means, of course, lots of testing, lots of unit testing. We, unlike Blizzard and all other companies from the industry, be they indie or otherwise, actually believe in testing here at the No Frauds Club, here at the Pronago YouTube channel. And that's what we're doing now, in a way, though I've already been doing quite a bit of testing. So I don't expect that this will reveal any really unexpected results. So that's essentially the introduction to HYDRA's Melee AI. Like I said, there are some issues, like, for example, the old AI limitation of just anytime one of their workers or buildings is attacked by a worker from an enemy, they will immediately pull all workers and attack that worker and chase them down to the death. Obviously, this is really bad for HYDRA's Melee AI because it does get limited by resources. And also the AI is really, really bad at repelling early attacks. Well, repelling attacks in general, but it's because of the fact that they have such poor, non-existent micro, generally speaking. Only a little bit of built-in systems from Blizzard and some of the changes we've been able to make to the tactical AI have helped in this case. But a lot of other stuff like kiting, for example, all that stuff is still pending. There's some Reaver micro principles we have in there, but we have not made a bug-free version just yet. So iQuare and I have been hard at work on that, mostly iQuare, I do have to admit. But I've been documenting some issues that hopefully will help us in developing fixes for the future. So without further ado, let us get into this particular test on Kakadu Port, a Melee map I made. So check that out. So as you can see, the AI kindly tells you its race, personality, and build order. Good luck remembering that in a very large map. We're going to speed the game up a little bit. In the top left-hand corner, we have a 3-Rax M&M build. A lot of these builds are courtesy of Connor, by the way. I'll let you know when we don't have one. Otherwise, assume they're all Connors. So this is Red Terran, 3-Rax M&M. This is 2-Gate DT, build I put together, but it's not very efficient. I'm sure Connor will get a better one eventually. This is Teal Protoss. And 3-Hatch HYDRA, which is a build Connor has put together. I think at some point he's going to try to improve it, but if he doesn't, I will, because at least for the AI, it's not very efficient. It might be because I wrote it poorly, but we'll see. The Zerg in general have a lot of problems. I'll get to that a little bit later on when I'm done introducing all the players. Also Flag 16, by the way. Purple Terran, red, what? Red, white, and blue. America, you know what I mean? So Purple Terran is 8-Rax mech. So this is like a tech switch build from Connor. Basically, they go for a super early barracks. It's not exactly 8-Rax in this particular case, but it's super early barracks into factory build. So you get like a nice bit of aggression. This is the 1-Gate Goon Expo from Connor. It actually is not. It used to be 1-Gate Goon. I think now it's just 1-Gate Expo. But it gets a pretty fast singularity charge timing and also expands. So that's that. That's also from Connor. And this is 3-Hatch Muta. So I expect this player to basically be completely useless, because the 3-Hatch Muta build is even worse than the 3-Hatch HYDRA build, because I made it, and not Connor. Now I shall unceremoniously spawn about 10 billion Necrons for the purpose of blowing up these crash battlecruisers that block paths, because, in case you don't know, AI are incapable of targeting neutral structures, and I forgot to delete these. So just don't mind me while I do this, and then we will talk a bit more about the AI. In fact, I can continue talking about AI while I do this, because I am prepared to die. Oh yeah, so that's further down here. So this map, actually, I'll talk a bit more about the map. It was actually built from the middle of the map. Well, we won't let that burn down. We'll just do that. And it's more important that I take care of the Zerg ones first anyway, because of the nature of them. They will expand faster than the other players. Check that out. Okay, so now we're done. The map was built around the middle of the map, which we will see soon. Actually has 4 expansions in the middle of the map. I also designed it with, obviously, as you can see, there's double gas from the Protoss positions. Because, you know, Protoss are actually the strongest AI in the entire game right now. And so I figured they needed even more help. It was actually just blind luck that they ended up being there, but I figure who better to use it than the Protoss? Actually, the Zerg would probably be much improved in that capacity. We have yet to see any attacks go out, but we'll see. So here's a medbay, obviously a HYDRA-specific add-on for the barracks. We've actually made another add-on for the barracks. It is the... Oh, maybe this is 3 racks M&M, and this is 8 racks tech switch? That might be the case, because they're expanding way faster, so yeah. I had my builds mixed up, but... So, red is 8 racks tech switch for factory, and purple is 3 racks M&M. So you're going to see some pretty epic shit out of them, because they build about 1,000 Ahmeds. The other add-on that we added recently-ish, like in the last 2 months, I think, to the barracks is the covert ops. So it's no longer on the science facility. Physics lab is now on the starport. We need to get better connector graphics for them, but otherwise they work just fine. Like visually, they're just a little messy. But the covert ops being on the barracks means that ghost production is now limited to how many structures you have added on. And eventually, once we have more unit IDs in the data structure that we can use, here's some spinning Zerglings. Enjoy those. They actually are not bugged. Besides the fact that they keep spinning. They would just be idling that whole time. But as you can see, they move just fine. I don't know why it spins like that. And they move because they're under attack from 2 zealots from the one goon, or one gate expo. I don't know why he built his nexus here, by the way. That's an immortal issue with AI, is that they build town halls in very stupid positions a lot of the times. So our 3-hatch Hydra personality was able to rebuff the first attack. It was actually unceremoniously or uncharacteristically weak from the Protoss. I expected more, to be honest. Very disappointing. Where was I? Talking about builds. Talking about Hydra-specific changes. So yeah, the fact that the production is now limited to specific add-ons, I think is more in line with what you would expect out of Terrans anyway. So this is the first attack squad moving out. This frame, by the way, divide this by 1440 if you want to get the in-game minutes, or you can figure out what it was from the timestamp, but I don't recommend that. We don't yet have reverse north-facing roof ramps from DF. He made this ramp, but I think even this is like actually a ramp crap incomplete thing. He's going to update this eventually, he said, but from what I remember anyway. But eventually we'll also have a north-facing one. We just don't have it yet. So I just have placeholder blank tiles over there that are unbuildable. Here's the middle of the map. We're starting to see it take shape. This map turned out pretty well, I think. It's actually fairly fun to play. Fairly strong attack force coming out from our teal Protoss player. 2-gate DT, remember. We should be seeing a Dark Templar popping out of one of these gateways and being added to the attack force. But I am... Yep, there it is. Another thing to remember is that Citadel of Adun right now is working. The work animations that I added for Framework, actually back in the Inconsummate days, will result in some pretty significant improvements, because the leg enhancements, or rather what that animation implies is leg enhancements. Leg enhancements affects 3 units now: Zealots, Legionnaires, and Dark Templar. Legionnaires are a Zealot offshoot that actually are weaker individually, but they deal bonus damage if more than one of them is attacking a unit, up to a cap of 2, or if you upgrade them, up to a cap of 4. So you can see where there would be utility there. This Dark Templar does not appear to be super interested in staying with the attack force, so he's going to fuck off, but that's okay. Here we have this lovely brown player safeguarding his ally for now, as orange has scouted out teal. By the way, we have this is me being tongue-in-cheek. This is all like, I have no idea what the fuck brown is doing. He's probably massing up an attack wave or something. It's not because he's trying to protect his ally who's been AFK for some reason, floating a billion money because my build order sucks. So we actually have orange scouting this stuff out and furiously trying to build spore colonies to defend against the mass gateways. Here we have brown moving forward. He's trying to impress me by pretending that he can micro and pull his units closer. I'm not buying it. Oh, that's where that Dark Templar went. He went to go fuck off and become a Dark Archon. I'll talk about the Dark Archon changes later on because they are not actually fully implemented. Meanwhile, I didn't even catch the action on this side, but seems blue was dealt a little bit more heavy damage from purple than he would have liked. He lost his Hydra, I think. He's getting a Spire. I assume that it's going to be a Hydra when he decides to rebuild it. But yeah, that's not too great. Follow-up squad being nice little, actually a pretty good surround. Unwitting, of course, because again, the AI cannot micro. I stress this. The AI is incapable of microing. But that worked out okay. I think they still don't have Stim Pack, apparently, so You won't see too much action out of them, but the double Ahmed was going to make this a little challenging. There we go. We got enough. Meanwhile, red clash in the middle. Not the best position to take fights from, but of course, brown surrounding red is going to make for a pretty interesting fight here as the Goliath spins. We love to see spinning Goliaths. Now, I'm willing to bet that not all of that was actually the attack force initially. Some of it was probably coming over here to defend this expansion. AI is sort of weird like that. We do have the first stacked structure that I've seen so far. I don't know what the hell's happening. Oh, yeah. TL sending in some units. But as you can see, like with this red marine and vulture walking towards this top right base, we are seeing some cases where the AI is trying to defend regions where it has buildings in. That's a classic behavior of the AI. If you've ever seen this stuff in the campaign or whatever, well, I imagine you wouldn't because they don't really expand, but they do try to do that, generally speaking. And don't be fooled by this double bunker. This is probably, like, almost certainly not actually staffed, if I had to guess. Speaking of not staffed, this base is not long for this world, judging by the number of dragoons we have. Classic move. We do have +1 plating on the vehicles for red, and +1 of infantry for those guys, whoever those guys are. We also have brown apparently not super interested in attacking teal as much as he is interested in attacking, blue versus red. He's going for the Terrans. And looks like this ramp was the nemesis of the AI because, again, they cannot micro. So we're seeing teal's forces get cleaned up over in orange's area. Double-pronged assault, not really working out too well. Those dragoons will get cleaned up by blue's reinforcements eventually. Purple streaming in with a couple of Ahmeds and Marines. Nothing much to look at. Red's got a siege tank. I don't think he's got enough. We have the Hierophant here, another Hydra-specific unit. The blue Maelstrom overlay effect is showing that the unit is affected by an ability called Cowardice, which basically slows the unit if it moves away from the Hierophant, or any Hierophant. So the idea is that these Hierophants are signifying these units. That's sort of the idea behind the unit. As you can see, that Hierophant was not very long for this world because it deals concussive damage. So it's also short range, and it's really meant to be kited with. It's a very fast-moving unit. That's okay, though. It has about 10 billion Dragoons backing it up, so I think it will be avenged. Meanwhile, a couple Hydras. It looks like I also had my builds confused for the Zerg. So it looks like blue is 3-hatch Hydra, which sort of, or 3-hatch Muta, which sort of explains the Scourge spam. And orange is 3-hatch Hydra, so there you go. Stacking structures is also something that the AI is very specially adept at. Eventually we'll fix this. We've actually made some pretty good progress on that. Speaking of making progress, though, brown is making progress on killing red. Not a whole lot here. This is another intrinsic limitation of the AI right now. The AI is really, really bad at calling for defense. They basically will just stream defenders one by one into the giant enemy attack waves. This could also obviously happen with players, of course. We do have Teal getting pressured over here. It looks like all of his workers at this expansion died unceremoniously by these Hydras. A scout will not help there. He's getting an Archon. That also will not help. We have additional reinforcements from Brown because, of course, he doesn't feel like he has enough units over here. And so, yeah, like I said, the Protoss are really strong. Teal hasn't really shown it. I don't really know what happened to Teal. Maybe it's because he only has 1.5 mining bases, I guess. Hard to say. But the fast +2 out of Brown seals the fate of pretty much the entire top team. I think his allies could AFK right now and it wouldn't matter. That being said, Purple has also put dampening on Blue, who, again, spams Scourge for defense for reasons unknown. I'm sure I can optimize that later on. But because the AI, I don't think the AI, red that is, would have been able to defend against this massive push anyway. He needed way more tanks, and he needed them at his base, basically. So it's unlikely that Brown would have ever been stopped in the first place. That being said, Brown's forces could have been whittled down better if Red had organized defenses in a similar fashion to how the AI organizes attacks, where they sort of mass up before doing so. Like over here we have Brown actually massing up a secondary attack force here. I guess it's a tertiary now because there's 2 attack forces massed up over here. And so we are seeing pretty large numbers out of this AI, and this is sort of testament to how the how powerful the AI are. I should mention that, I think I mentioned this at the beginning, but I may have forgotten. The AI actually does have a slight resource multiplier. They are getting about 10 resources per return instead of 8, so it's a 25% increase. This multiplier is only necessary because the AI is so bad at microing, but as you can see, once they hit critical mass, it's very difficult to stop them. I may play around with the idea of reducing or removing their multiplier entirely once they have a certain number of mining bases, but until we get further testing done and further stable builds of the AI, where their defenses are improved and such like that, I'm probably not going to modify too much. Because as potentially unstoppable as the Protoss seem right now, and even as robust as some of the Terran stuff seems right now, like the purple Terran, for example, it's pretty clear to me that it doesn't actually require a really, really good player to stop the AI from building, you know, as many production structures as they have. You know, their base layout space is really, really stupid, right? Like they're not very smart about placing their buildings. It doesn't actually take a lot, I think, to stop them from getting to critical mass. So odds are they will never get to this point as long as you keep the pressure on them. Which is why team games are so good for AI, because odds are one of them is going to survive the early stages of the game, even if the other 1 or 2 players get destroyed. So you're going to see some competence out of them. It's just that getting them to the point where the early game is alive is the tough part. Some Zerg here units streaming in, classic. And there you have it. So it seems the game has ended. Not without some more stacking from Red. Red is the only one who stacked, I think. Let me see. Oh no, we have a purple stack. And another one. Sometimes the AI just forgets to repair structures as well. That's an ongoing bug that we're trying to fix. And so that is basically the castover for now. I mentioned Dark Archon changes earlier, so I might as well put a pin in that note. Dark Archon changes are to make Mind Control the default spell, to make it cost 25 energy, and to make it drain energy over time as long as units are connected to it. And then once the caster dies or runs out of energy, the units revert back to their original owner. So that's more or less the way things are. Let's see what this shuttle does. I'm betting it has a Reaver. Very disappointing. Just a Zealot, a Legionnaire, and a Dragoon? Come on now. Obviously, custom graphics are placeholder. I think this is actually a unit from Diablo 2 or something. I don't remember where it came from. I just know it was in some other mod and I ripped it, but that's okay. Bullied. And that is that. We have failed to achieve victory, my friends. The AI win again. Wait for it. Oh, sorry. There was one probe left. There we go. Now we failed to achieve victory, boys. So I figured I would do one more castover since that one was fairly short. I was expecting it to last a little bit longer. We're going to do it on Moonlit Outpost, which will have a couple of new builds. I think some of the same ones. Like I think the Protoss build that dominated is the same. But I do believe we have 2 other unique ones. I'll talk a little bit more about the limitations of the AI currently and where we want to fix stuff. I have not made any changes to the AI since the previous recording section of this video, so same issues will arise, I'm sure. And obviously, some of the stuff is just beyond the scope that I have the ability to change in the first place. So we do have 3 racks M&M, 3 hatch Hydra, so those are similar. That's orange and purple from the last game. And 1 Gate Expo, which is brown from the last game. And then the only new one right now, I believe this is 2 hatch Hive, or I forget what it said in the beginning of the game. It's like 2 hatch Hydra, 3 hatch Hydra, something like, or sorry, 2 hatch Ultra, 3 hatch Ultra, something like that. I've got a full documentation as to what is what and how to set them up as well. If you would like to set these up for yourself and you have a little bit of SEM draft knowledge, it's not very complicated at all. Otherwise, they are builds and personalities are randomly selected at the beginning of each game. So you can just play melee and hope you roll a personality that is not impossible to beat and also not complete bullshit. not completely easy, right? Not a complete pushover. Now we do have some Overlord spinning action happening. And one thing that I would often observe from Zerg is that they would send Overlords to their allies' bases. Maybe the bases here are distant enough that this doesn't happen. I actually don't know what causes this issue, but it is a little bizarre, nonetheless. So we have expansions going out at around the same time. Usually Purple's a little slower on the draw, but I did make some improvements to the expansion stuff. So they actually are usually slower by about like 300 or 400 health in the hatchery, which I don't know what that would look like in frames, but... And it should also be known that it should be known that the early build orders do not take into account the AI's extra money from their resource multiplier. It does expressly wait for build times, which are the same across all players. So, for example, it will wait the build time of an SCV before requesting the next SCV, or requesting, some other part of the build. So it's going to wait until it had enough time to get 8 SCVs before getting its first depot, or maybe it's 9. I think most of the time it's 9 depot, not 8, but I'm sure it depends on the build. So in this case, we have, again, 1 gate expo. This might actually be a slightly different build than the previous one. I wasn't paying attention to when Brown expanded in the previous game. So now the only player who hasn't expanded is Red, and that's because he's going 3 racks M&M. He's going to expand on the back of his first attack, or maybe a little bit before then. This player, on the other hand, is going to be a little slow to hit any actual mark, right? Purple is not only Zerg, which means he's really slow and dumb, but he's also sort of a mid-game, like first 8 to 10 minutes, I start attacking kind of player. So even slower than like the 3 racks M&M attack that we saw. We might not even see that attack this particular time because I'm pretty sure this build attacks a little bit earlier than it used to, so you'll actually probably see some sizable attacks from the TL Protoss early. So based on that, you know what you know. One of the biggest limitations of coding the Zerg AI was figuring out how to manage larvae well, because I am not a great Zerg player, so I don't even have a pre-existing understanding of how you would try to manage larvae, and like when to build drones versus when to build combat units, when to cut drones and not produce any more drones until I have a certain number of combat units, when to scout and all that stuff. Obviously AI don't scout right now, they will eventually, which will put even more of an economic sort of standstill on them, because they will scout with one of their workers, which means they are bound to have less resources. But as of right now, we do see 4 zealots out for Teal. Pretty scary. He's got his 5th and his 6th one is on the way. And you guys haven't seen the 4-gate build, which is even more deadly, so just be grateful. See, we are getting a 6-ling push a little bit early on. There are 4 Zerglings over here, and I believe there's 2 at the other base. Maybe he moved all of his over there. He should be getting some more pretty soon. Actually, I'm not even sure what he's waiting for right now. He might be waiting for his 3rd base to finish, which is another bug that I can probably fix. And he's just going to allow those Zerglings into his main. There's 2 more coming. 2 more coming, actually. Even more coming. More on the way. Zealots are also apparently heading towards blue. Got some Marines moving over to back him up. Red trying to be a man. All the Zerglings dead. Actually, BM burrowing over here, even though there's complete vision. Hi. Should be sufficient Marines over here to help out, I think. The Zealots are a little bit scarier, obviously. Unless they can get routed at a certain point. I don't see what will happen there. And it doesn't look like it matters anyway, because Purple has a lot of Zerglings in this base. We don't even have any Sunkens or anything. So this is one of those cases where I think the AI got hung up on something strange that it should not have gotten hung up on. Normally that doesn't happen. Could be a result of the latest changes to the alias system that we added. I doubt it, but could be. Either way, it definitely means that more info and testing is needed. And this is one of the challenges of coding this kind of AI anyway, is because it's so modular. There's so many different blocks going on, and it's quite unwieldy to read. I will be the first to admit it. Even after many attempts to refactor it, and I'm sure I'm going to be having more additional attempts after that to refactor it, it will undoubtedly be a very monumental, mammoth script to interact with. Ahmed being a man and standing up to the Dragoon menace. Unfortunately, there's nothing that Blue can do. His life is over and forfeit. Meanwhile, a single Dragoon has emerged and gotten body blocked by medics. See a nerd. Oh, another one coming. Oh, you'd almost think that was intentional. Dude, what? Epic target selection, by the way. So I'm not convinced that Red will abandon his attack plans. He is dumb, so he's probably just going to charge off into death. This is another weird thing about the AI, where they basically just spin their workers and attack parties all around. Mostly attack parties. I don't know why I said workers. Probably because I was expecting worker massacre, and I think I'm going to get it. So as we're seeing here, the AI is loath to actually load their bunkers because they're dumb. So our lovely Zerg ally has all of his forces all the way up here and is choosing to instead mass up for an attack as well. Classic behavior, of course. But at this point, it doesn't really matter because Red's about to die, and then it'll be Blue's turn to be finished off. Fuck that covert ops. There's a Vorvaling. Hope you guys enjoy that. They can be upgraded to move faster when moving towards enemy units. They are an interception, frontline, tanky Zergling type. They deal less DPS, even though they have the same damage amount, because they attack slower and do not receive benefits from adrenal glands or metabolic boost. So, Zerglings are still your DPS melee, but Vorvalings are a nice support unit, especially in conjunction with Hydras or Lurkers or whatever. They kind of buy time for the rest of the Zerg army to get into position. Now, in this particular case, I have no idea what the fuck is going to happen over here. The +1 fast weapons means that the Sunken Colony probably won't live for too long. I say that, of course, but then all the Marines get picked off by Zerglings. So even though the Sunken Colony was almost dead, not quite. And here we have Dragoons. See a nerd. So there's been way too many gameplay changes to Hydra from the base game, or even from Hydra 1.0, to recount in a single video while I'm looking at AI. Obviously, AI changes have been a focus anyway, so I wouldn't really expect anything other than that. Anything other than me struggling to figure out how to explain all the different changes of Hydra. How can you explain such changes anyway? There's so many different things going on. You'll just have to open it up, find out yourself. Has the AI improved since this video has gone up? Probably. So you should go figure that out. We're now on GitHub instead of Mega, so check that. Don't ever download from Mega, please. Save yourself. Save yourself like Blue could not. It's over. See you, nerd.